Back here, one of my favorite spots. The sun's starting to set there. It's the end of the week. It's a great opportunity to kind of reflect. I think uh, it's easy to just kind of let the weekend and go into a weekend and continue the cycle into next week. I try to stop at least for a little bit on at the end of a week to not necessarily reflect on the successes and things that went well throughout the week. I try to be mindful of, where have I lived my life uninhibited in some ways. I think that's kind of been my intention for much of this week, is to recognize where am I holding back and where am I shrinking in some ways and not living into to my fullest potential, my fullest personhood. And for the most part, it's been a pretty good week for that. And for me, it often comes down to kind of two spaces where I try to reflect and meditate, and it's on, am I allowing myself to be seen and am I allowing myself to be heard? Because for me, there's something about the fullness of life when those two pieces are in play: being seen, being heard. Um, you probably have had the experience of feeling like someone's not listening, that someone's not hearing what it is you're saying. And it's disorienting, I think, in some ways. Uh, it almost feels like a violation. There's a shared humanity that we have with one another. And when the other can't necessarily be in that space, and sometimes people just don't have the ability to be in that space, it it is jolting. And I think they're often the people that we have a hard time trusting, because they don't see us as people. They don't see us as human beings. They see us more as objects, and see us as um, what they can get, I guess, in some ways, out of it. So they're always thinking about the response rather than really listening to what you're saying. For me, I've spent my whole life working with people, and so much is said in what's not said. So can you read between the lines? Can you hear between the words? To really grasp what's going on in someone's life is a skill I've had to learn over the years, especially working with people on a heart level. Knowing that so much of our pain and hurt is stored in that space. And I mean, if you think about it, if you're going to have heart surgery, you don't want the doctor who's just going to go in there and yank things. You want someone who's going to treat it with care and finesse. And excuse me. um, because like it's life and death. And maybe in the moments of listening to someone, it's not necessarily life and death per se, but it is of being seen and being heard, and feeling that sense of humanity that we share. It's the only thing we have to be able to share with another human being in that way. And so when I reflect on the week, it often comes down to that. Not only am I feeling seen and heard by other people, am I showing up in that way for other people as well? If I could accomplish that, if I could be quote unquote successful in that way, I know that it's been a good week, because I know that I have shown up in a way where a person feels validated for who they are and where they are at on their journey, and not where I think they should be, and not where others want them to be, but they could just be there. And when you're hurting, when you're feeling like you're in pain, it's the only place you can be, because that hurt and that pain seems to magnify life in some ways. And so I think it's so crucial in reflecting on my week, and I kind of scan the people that I have met and have encountered. Have I allowed them to be seen? Have I allowed them to be heard? And at the same time, maybe even the more difficult one is, can I look in the mirror and say the same thing of myself? Have I allowed myself to be seen? Have I allowed myself to be heard? Even if it's not accepted, or even if it's not even necessarily heard, I didn't hinder myself. I didn't inhibit myself from expressing how I feel and expressing what's going on and expressing what I see and my opinion and my thoughts. Because then I know it's been set, and then I know it's at least out in the universe. And my approach with working with people over these decades has been plant seeds, plant seeds, plant seeds, plant seeds, seed, 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 because you have no idea what will come to fruition. And some of those seeds never go anywhere, and you know that. But some of those seeds also begin to flourish in someone's life. You never know. You just never know when you're going to impact someone in that way. Whether it's, I just came from the grocery store, whether it's in the grocery store or in Walmart or at the gym down the road or wherever I may be, can I be aware enough, which is sometimes the challenge, aware enough to see and hear the people around me. And so that reflection for me is much more important as the week goes on, and as my week comes to an end and kind of quiet down in this space for the night. Um, because for me, that's success. That's a week I know that I have. Like, if you boil it down, being seen, being heard is, am I showing up in love? I think that's it. I think that's, if I had to sum it up in that way, it would be, am I showing up in love, and am I showing up in expression of that love by the way I'm living my life and by the way I am allowing someone else to be seen and heard. It doesn't matter. And some will argue with me. I know others will argue with me on this. So much else does not matter. It just doesn't matter. So much of it is little stuff. And if I only see you through a narrow lens of a role I'm playing in the world, I'm just never going to be able to show up in that. I'm never going to be able to show up in love and through love in that way, because I'm not being authentic at that point. I'm simply fulfilling a role in one way or another. And I've just been mindful of it, especially the past couple of weeks, just going through some stuff myself, that it's sometimes hard to find the people who can be that in return. Like, I'm so mindful of it in my own life, and I'm so mindful of it in the way that I show up for people, that when it's not reciprocated, can be a real challenge. And then I always have to, like, I even have to view that experience through myself being seen and heard, and showing myself love in that way, because I also have to accept that that's where that person's at in this moment. That's where they are. And if that person's hurting or that person is suffering in one way or another, and kind of just holds it in this space in their heart, like I mentioned, um, sometimes they just don't have the capacity to be love and to express that love in the way we might think we deserve or want, or want in that moment. So as my week ends, it's viewed through that lens of success. I can add up numbers, I could look at data, I could look at all the rest. Great, I've accomplished all these tasks. But have I shown up and allowed others to be seen and heard? And have I allowed myself to be seen and heard? If you want to review your week, review your day, look at it through that lens of being seen, being heard.